came from Mackinac Island. They want 150 of these. This is treated yellow pine. And I don't think the profile was available or something where they just, I don't know if they wanted to pay the money to set a machine up to make these exactly like these or what the deal was, but they came to me. I gave them a price of $25 a spindle, and I have $1,000 in cedar at my place. It's dry and thick, and I'm going to mill it into 1 by. It's actually 1 3/8 by 1 3/8. So when I looked at the surface quality of this thing, it looks like it's ripped and torn pretty badly. So my guess is this was done on a back knife lathe, where the wood is spinning and the knives are spinning the opposite direction, and the knives come in and they go back out, and it's done, and it ejects it, and another one comes in a factory setting. So there was never any sanding done, and it's kind of ratty. At first I thought it was handmade, and that someone, had roughness because they weren't turning it properly, or the tool was dull, or the wood was maybe not spinning fast enough. I didn't know why, but I think this is a pretty rough pattern. And you can even see saw swirl on some of this where it went through the rip saw. So when I do something like this, the first thing I do is get all my blank stock ready. So it goes through the table saw at 1.5 inches square, and then it goes through the joiner. And on the joiner it gets this side and this side, 90 degrees to each other. So those two get surfaced, and then it goes twice through the planer for the remaining 2 sides. And then that way it's dead square, and it's whatever dimension I have my planer set to, which is 1 3/8. So next thing I do is put them all on my workbench, and I line them all up with the pattern. I use a framing square, and I just transfer the lines where all the different details are. And then I also transfer that onto my tool rest, which is this long. It's a grater blade. So I make the marks on the tool rest with a Sharpie. And then I have 2 calipers set. One is going to be set for this diameter, which is repeated here and here and here. And the next one is set for the parting tool work, which is right there on either side of the beads. So that's the 2 calipers I would have set. I would probably do all the parting tool cuts first, and then do the rounding with a gouge for the beads. And this is so slender here and even in here that it's weak. So when I tried to do the first one, I knew right away the cedar's soft, it tends to bend, it's not sturdy. So this was the first one. The first thing I did when I put this square on there is I tried to turn a round section. And I have a 2-wheel steady rest that comes in from the backside. And I put that rest right here on the round section. So what I've effectively done is I've cut the span in half. Now I'm turning a spindle this long, and I'm turning a spindle this long. So that it's not doing the skip rope whip due to centrifugal force. And you also, by how tight you make the tailstock, you can actually put a bow in the piece if you crank this tension up. So most likely I had a little of that going on. So part of this demo was supposed to be showing you to take a faceplate like this for this lathe, put a piece of 3/4 plywood on it, turn it round, and then take a compass with 2 sharp points and set the compass for this corner to this corner diagonally, and then make a scratch line on the surface of that plywood while it's spinning. Then put a Forstner bit in the tailstock and precision bore within the 4 lines, or that scratch line. You want to plow out the middle, and then you hand chisel a square taper. It gets smaller as it goes in. And then this 1 3/8 will fit into a taper. And that's what drives the work, is being stuck in a square hole, not how much pressure you put on here.
Okay.
So if you do that, you're able to drive the work without it slipping and not have very much tailstock tension, which tends to bend the piece when it's slender. So 150 of these. I figure I can do 10 of them a morning, and in 15 days I have them done.
That's a good way of looking at things when you get that. I did one time I had, for an outside deck, I had to make 650 spindles like that. Inch and a half, and the wood was available for the lumberyard. I had 650 of them to do. God, it never ended.
Well, I found that after a morning of turning, if I can get 10 in the morning, I think I can go way faster than that. But after the first dozen or so, you almost memorize the pattern and you get really quick at it. Your speed gets less and less every time you do one. One thing I noticed about the original is the beads are sort of not really round. They're just sort of, they look like those old candies that used to be barrel shaped, you know.
Oh.
So I don't know if they were hand turned or not. I don't know. But I'm going to turn them. So I figure 10 mornings or 15 mornings, that's it. 10 in the morning and then stop, because you start cramping up in your shoulders, your neck gets sore, and you just get tired of them after 10 or so. And if you can do 10 in the morning, it gives you the rest of the day to do something else. So that's the plan, okay? And there's no deadline, just as long as I get them done probably by the end of November. So I will probably be here until early December. In the first few days of December, I'm leaving for the winter, but I'll peck away at this, have some time. And then the last thing, after I have divided it in half with the wheels here, I'll turn this end and I'll turn this end, all the details. Then I'll take the wheels away and turn right there, because this will be too big compared to this and this on either side of the wheel. So when I do that, I probably will reach behind the spindle with a gloved hand and leather, and I'll carefully shave that and use my fingers as a steady so it doesn't vibrate too much. And the other thing, without having the square to fit it into on this end, is you need more tailstock pressure. Once I have the square, I'm going to be able to turn my RPMs up, because I'll have the middle supported by the wheels, and it'll give me a lot smoother cut on this real soft cedar with the higher RPMs. That's why routers cut so nice and smooth, because they're turning 30,000. I think my lathe at home turns 4,000 or something that I'm working on. So I'm not at 30,000, but when I turned this one, I was only at about 800. And I got kind of a ratty surface that's going to take some sanding. So.
Do you have to paint it too or not?
A what? No, I don't paint. No.
Because on something like that, I'd be tempted to just turn them ratty and film and paper. You know. Just,
well, this was only 10 minutes into it, so I think with a better setup, you know, where I refine my method and keep my tools good and sharp, it'll be all right. I've turned a lot of cedar for the island, and I do okay. This is smaller than most. Most of the time they're 1.5 inches or even a little bigger, but this 1 3/8 is kind of on the small side.
What did you say? What material is it?
This is our local cedar, yellow cedar,
Cedar.
here in the UP. Yeah. And I have a lot of it that's this wide, 4 inches thick, and from me to you long. So I just have to rip those into strips. Each one I get 48 out of each plank. Something. So only 3 planks. But it makes a lot of these.
If you don't get more flexing with cedar, you would have.
You get a lot more because it's weak. So that's why the wheels, and that's why the square to fit them into.
that weighs about 18 pounds a cubic foot.
Yeah, this isn't much. It's like ball
Yeah,
stuff.
but as soon as you get both ends, then it is touching the middle of it.
Well, that's why I have a set of wheels right here on the middle. And the wheels I have come from the back, and there's just 2 of them. But you also could put a steady on that's a complete circle with 4 wheels. You know that. But you'd have to, every time you put one in, you'd have to adjust all 4 wheels. After you turn around spot for them.
Yeah.
So your steady is not a complete circle.
It's a one-way.
It's one way.
It's a one-way spindle steady. It's
Yeah.
made for that.
Yeah.
It's got like a little handle you grip, and the 2 wheels move further, and it comes in from the back.
So you would have to turn that on every one of them before you set up your steady.
I have to turn around and bring that into every one.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's right there. It releases when you let off a little clamp. The 2 wheels spread apart.
I got it.
So then you just turn this and then just crowd them back together. You don't have to keep moving the steady.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fast to put it on and off. It's a good setup, but it's a one-way. It's real heavy made. Good product. That was supposed to be the demo. Sorry, tool rest is this long. It's a grater blade, and it has 2 tool rest bases like this. So I can do the whole thing without resetting the rest. That's kind of handy. But on here, we'll reset it. So We'll start them out. And all I'm going to try to do is get round. And on this one, this handle is completely round. I think I'm going to move the centers off a little bit and try to make it oval. Slightly oval in shape, because it fits your hand better when it's oval. You can steer the maul a little better. So, when I work with the kids, they're all concentrating on where it's being cut. I try to get them to look back here at the ghost. Because when you're looking back there, you can see how much wood you're taking off really well. Wobble in the middle.
Yeah.
You can also stop. These have been milled into octagons already. These are spear handles for pike fishing in the wintertime. And I'm turning a whole bunch of these for a guy. So I had a lot of these octagon ash pieces roughed out waiting for his project. So I stole one. And that's why I'm not having to take much wood off to get round. And they basically were rough cut squares on the table saw, and then I ran them through a smaller table saw at a 45 and just took the corners off.
What kind of wood?
Ash.
Ash.
I'm sorry to see our ash going. It's so useful wood. It's a shame. Now, if you use the center, it'll get dull. If you roll the tool over and use like I'll call this 12 o'clock, I'll call this 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. If I do my cutting at about 9:30, 10 o'clock, with the tool rolled over and go in that direction, it's just like a skew chisel. It'll cut in spiral shavings and very smooth. A little different, but faster. That's pretty good. I think I've still got one little flat here, so get that along here. I may get a little vibration in the middle here.
Is this the lathe we bought the school?
This is the lathe that we didn't buy it. It was bought by the tribe and by the community foundation.
Okay.
It was paid for, but we wrote part of the. I was working on the grant application for those two donators.
Okay.
And showing the need for the students to have a lathe that was a good lathe.
What is that?
This is a Jet 1440. It swings 14 inches by 40 long. And I don't know how you get 40 out of it, because I don't think this is 40, and that's maxed out, so I don't know where they get the 40 from. But and the headstock moves with this lever. You can slide it and you can turn it sideways, so the bowls will swing over here. And it's a great lathe. It's variable speed and all. And I think it has step pulleys in here where you can change, 2 speed ranges, high and low. Good machine. But yeah, this is the one. And the kids turned a lot of rolling pins on it. I turn a lot of spindles. I wear a leather glove with the fingers cut out. So I'm accustomed to letting a little leather ride on there. I can kind of dampen vibration like that. Also, an added thing that you can feel when it's dry. And the pressure that you exert on the tool, you can counteract with your fingers. So if you kind of balance the two, the thing isn't bending on you. And so it's the amount of pressure you exert both directions to keep it nice like that. Now, if you get into slender stuff, sometimes it's better to turn the middle first before you make the two ends slender. They're a little stronger, and you still have thick ends. And on my big lathe that's from me to Larry long, when I turn sailboat masts and I turn paddles, kayak paddles, that kind of thing, it really matters long, because you crank up the pressure on here, you can bend the long stick pretty easily. And so you really have more issues trying to control the movement of the wood when you're pushing against it. You get into turning spindles, you'll find out that by transferring your weight from one foot to the other, keeping the tool handle against your hip, and simply transferring from one side to the other, you'll get the smoothest results on your spindle, more than if you just stand in one spot and move your arms back and forth, move your body. So that's called the Turner sway. I think I've read that somewhere. You hear that, Gary?
Well, Ellsworth always said you gotta dance your legs, your body.
And that's the other reason I limited it to about 10 spindles, because you get fatigued. You start to tighten up. Ellsworth lays on the floor and does stretches and all that. I think that's a great idea.
He's got a hanging bar, and I have one.
Reach up and hang to straighten your back.
Take your feet off the floor.
You do get back
You hang there for, you gotta really get on your tippy toes, but then you hold on to it for about a minute.
It relaxes all your vertebrae get tugged, and realigned. And it really, if you're at the lathe a long time, you will get some lathe-related stiffness, coming into it. Now, here's the tool that I got at a garage sale. By the way, this tool was standing in my window like this, and I can see where the powder post beetles are eating into the end of the handle where it was on the windowsill. All these little marks. This is called a boat builder's slip. And when you build boats, put it under your arm and you shave the planks where they all fit on the side of the boat to one another. And I've used leaf springs of cars on big spindles, long ones. But this is pretty nice. And anytime you use a skew chisel, you probably raise your tool rest a little higher, quite a lot higher than you do a gouge. So you bring it up. And the nice part about this is it doesn't have corners sticking out, so you can get the right angle on it. Come right along and shave it down nicely. It does take a little heavier bite, so it's going to induce more vibration. But you can use that tool. You can use big bowl gouges if you don't have anything else. You can roll them on their side and use them like a skew. They cut really well. And especially a big bowl gouge that's nearing the end of its life. There isn't much left of it because you're not really hanging way past the rest. You're right there. So any of those tools will shave a spindle down for you. And then you also can use a normal skew chisel. Use long point up or long point down. It really doesn't matter. And they're wonderful tools for skimming along and long tapers, things like that. So you got your choice, whatever you like. I think I'm going to shift centers now, and I'm going to make this the handle end. So I'll just back off on this. What I'm after here is a oval-shaped cross-section. I don't want to move it a lot, but I'm going to move it twice. I'm going to make a mark on here so I know what's top. There's a slight flat right here, so I'm going to make this the top. And therefore, I'm going to move it that direction and this direction. I'm going to move it twice. And if you move it an 1/8 inch, it moves a 1/4 because it's revolving. So it's an 1/8 both ways off. So you really don't need to move the center that much to have quite a dramatic result. So I'm going to make this go there, and I'm going to drop this piece just an 1/8 of an inch. Oh, right there. And then just tighten it back up. Come down here. There's some really remarkable turnings guys out there that do a lot of off-center turning, and there's chucks that you can buy that have off. Alrighty, got a little bit of oval going on now. So now I'm going to move the other way. Want to loosen that up for me? You're standing there.
Okay.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, tighten it back up. So I moved an 1/8 inch one way, now I'm moving an 1/8 inch other way from what started as the middle. You guys may want to come up here and grab that. Just feel it with your hand. It's pretty hard to see it from that far away, but if you just hold it in your hand, you'll feel that it is indeed an oval.
Oh, yeah.
The oval starts right in there. If you take light cuts, you can sneak up on that paper. Get that vibration, you'll get spirals on your work, and you can see them here when it's oscillating a little bit. It's producing spirals. So what do you do about that? You can take a smaller cut, move a little slower, turn your RPMs up. All that should help get rid of spirals. I had the RPMs down when I was doing the oval, so if I turn it back up, I might find a sweet spot for oscillation too, where it's less vibration. Moving a little slower, taking a lighter cut, not trying to do it all in 1 or 2 passes. Notice the difference? And the surface off the tool is remarkably better. Now when I train kids to turn rolling pins, the natural tendency for a kid is to push it in there and cut. And I really have to work to get them to put their backhand low and touch the tool like that where nothing is cutting, and then raise it up until you get a shaving. And then don't raise it up any higher than that. Just stay there and then move and cut. Because if you do, you're scraping and you'll dull the cutting edge, and you won't hold the wood fibers down as they're being cut. So you'll have more sanding. They're not rubbing the bevel. And it's not possible to rub the bevel when it's square, when you're first starting out. But after you've achieved roundness, you always tell the kids, start out with your hand too low, raise it till you get a cut, just until you get a cut, not past that, and then move along slowly. And when you watch someone who turns a lot, they don't go through that up and down. You don't even see that happening, but they really are. They really have memorized where the bevel rubs, and they don't go past it coming up with the backhand. Each pass I take is getting smaller, the diameter, so I have to raise my backhand just a little to keep the bevel rubbing. So this is the oval section from here to here. This is round and tapering down, and I'm going to probably stop right about in here and leave this thick for shaping on the bandsaw. I selected this piece of wood for today's demo because it was pretty straight grain, and when you get a ash lumber, even 2-inch thick ash lumber that someone's milled out of a log, or you buy 2-inch ash lumber at a store, that mill that's doing the milling doesn't care what happens to the grain. It's cutting straight. So when you look at a piece of lumber, if you want a strong handle, you have to look for a piece of wood where the grain goes straight all the way through the piece. Because if I would have picked one where the grain was at a diagonal, it would be inherently weak, for tool handle, hard use tool handles. So I deliberately chose one that didn't have any knots. It's a real pretty straight grain piece of ash. And I got one little lump right in here, but I don't think I want to take it down any more slender because this is a heavy maul used for hard work, so you just want to...
Any, or
I'm not even gonna sand, it's just going, I don't think this one was ever sanded, that's right off the tool.
no, I mean, do you riv any when you split it out of a piece?
You can, if you have an ash log so tall, you can put wedges in it and split it, and it'll follow the grain.
Dog sleds, snowshoes.
There's a tool for that, it's a piece of steel that's sharpened like a chisel, it's about that long, and has a wooden handle that comes straight up, and you beat it in with a sledgehammer, and then you pull on the handle.
Sort of
It's
like
called a
a-
froe.
Like a fro, yeah.
And that's made for splitting out fence rails and things like that, so. You could use this to split, just hammer that down in, that'll work fine too. Okay, one more little cut here, and texture of the handle is a little around the top. Good. Kids also tend to hit the drive center with the tool. So at home I'll cut that off with a bandsaw and put a few little grooves in here. Don't have to. Piece of baling wire. I like to decorate my tools, you know. You don't want to get your shirt sleeve caught doing this. So it didn't take terribly long, but